Hello, everyone. My name is Victor Morales Becerra. I'm the digital organizer for CWS, and welcome to Pathways to Belonging, Empowering Our Voices. As an organizing team, we work towards building a better future by building community and empowering our immigrant and refugee neighbors. But we do that so that way we have a place to belong. But we know that belonging requires action. Belonging is built through action. So today we're going to be discussing with some of my colleagues with the CWS Advocacy team on how they work with local stakeholders to build a more sustainable future and how they work towards building pathways of belonging and opportunities for their immigrant and refugee neighbors. So with that, I'm going to introduce Danilo. Welcome, Danilo.
Hey Victor, hey everyone.
Yeah, welcome. So go ahead and just introduce yourself and kind of yeah, just let us know who where you're located at.
Awesome. Well, my name is Danilo Zach. I'm the Director of Policy at Churchfield Service. I'm based in New York, but our team is based in DC, and we're all about meeting with members of Congress, meeting with the administration, and trying to lift up policies that support refugees and newcomers. And so really eager to be part of the conversation today. It's a really important day that I know we'll get into. And Victor, do you want me to go into a little bit about, why we're here today, or should we wait until everybody has a chance to introduce themselves?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. Well, yeah, just want to talk a little bit, about why we're here, and call everyone in to join us in acting and advocating for policies that do uplift the voices of refugees and newcomers, ensure that those in power are really listening to those voices as well. And one of the reasons we're having this conversation today is National Voter Registration Day, and one of the most important ways to make your voice heard and to encourage others in your community to make their voices heard is to make sure you're registered to vote. We've got an election coming up on November 5th for the President of the United States. There's also a lot of other things that are probably on your ballot that really matter, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But registering to vote is a big part of advocacy, a big part of making your voice heard, and there's a lot of tools that we can share, and I know we will, to allow you to do so. It's an easy way to take action as well. And maybe I'll turn it back to you, Victor, if you want to let some others into the space. Victor, I think you're muted.
Oh, apologize about that. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. And we actually do also have a picture of the policy team, which is right here. I know that Danilo mentioned that the policy team is located throughout the U.S. And with that, we're actually bringing in Valeria, our community organizer. But I'll let you introduce yourself and introduce also the team.
Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I'm happy to be here today to have this important conversation. My name is Valeria Vizcaíno. I am the refugee community organizer based here in Durham, North Carolina. I'm originally from Colombia. And just to talk a little bit about my organizing work and my colleagues' organizing work, we truly believe that immigrants and refugees are able to create change when they come together and mobilize. So we focus on empowering and equipping immigrants and refugees to be involved in decision-making processes. One of those big decision-making moments, of course, being elections, and making sure that we are not only registering new voters, but that new Americans also have the information and the tools to feel like they can be involved in this civic process.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, the community organizing team does a lot in collaboration with the policy team. I wish I could speak for everything that they do, but they're going to be the primary speakers tonight. And we'll be able to share a little bit more about that. So with that, we're going to bring in our next guest, Blaze, who can talk a little bit about, who can briefly introduce himself. And yeah, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Victor, for bringing this idea. My name is Blaise Balazir. I am a community organizer here in Columbus, Ohio. And as my colleagues already said, today we are coming here to highlight the tremendous job that we are doing as immigrants and refugees, that we all work together to switch things, in our favor too. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome everyone. But before we get started, we're just gonna, sometimes folks get confused with like certain terminology, and refugees and immigrants are a big conversation in like on day to day, and this year definitely with the election. So we're just gonna play a video and we'll go from there.
Who are refugees? Refugees are people just like you and me. People with lives, plans, and dreams for the future. But war, violence, and persecution have forced them to make an incredibly difficult choice. Some faced danger because of who they are and what they believe. Some are in danger because they spoke out on behalf of their neighbors who were marginalized. Others have watched as their homes were destroyed and their neighborhoods became war zones. All of them left everything behind for a chance at safety for themselves and their families. Once refugees arrive in a new country, they register with the United Nations Refugee Agency to access protection and other benefits. Some live in refugee camps. Many live in cities and towns, beginning new lives in their host countries. There are more than 80 million people who have been forcibly displaced from their homes. 26 million are refugees as defined by the UN. Less than 1% of refugees get the opportunity to be resettled in a third country like the United States. How do refugees get resettled in the United States? Although they have made it out of immediate danger, some particularly vulnerable refugees cannot remain in the country they fled to. These refugees may have urgent medical needs, be survivors of torture, or they may be in danger of further persecution. The UN Refugee Agency identifies the refugees who are most in need of resettlement to a safe third country, like the United States, and refers their cases to the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program. These refugees undergo thorough background, biometric, security, and health screenings before being approved to travel to the United States. A regional resettlement support center provides information and classes to prepare them for life in the United States, and then their travel is booked. Each week, refugee resettlement agencies like CWS are assigned to the cases of arriving refugee families. As soon as these families arrive in the United States, we are there to welcome them to their new home and provide the services they need to rebuild their lives.
Well, that is it. So that was it with the video. So with the next steps, we're just going to be just kind of having a casual discussion. There's as a digital organizer, recently we ran a few different emails with our community leaders, and we were asking them questions and try to find out like what they care about and what were their hopes and dreams for the future. So we had a Pennsylvania pathmaker who mentioned, "My hopes are to see every immigrant who comes to Lancaster feel welcome, supported, and be able to find more opportunities." We got all kinds of different responses from our community leaders that the community organizers work with. So with that, I guess I'd like to ask y'all like this question, right? So what are your hopes and dreams for the future, and how does this actually show up in your advocacy efforts?
I can jump in first, Victor. Thanks for the question. I think it's a really good one, an important one to be thinking about the future, especially this year as we head towards an election and be thinking about what we want to see. And I think for me, maybe similar to the example you raised, I'm hoping for a future where refugees and folks who are forcibly displaced really have those clear pathways to protection and belonging. Pathways like the U.S. Refugees Program. I mean, there are other pathways to come into the United States and seek protection as well, but also to make sure that those are accessible to people who are most in need, that they are stable, they offer lasting protection. I hope for a future where people don't have to wait for years, sometimes decades in backlogs to get to the US, or once they're in the US to access employment authorization, even if they're eligible, or waiting for a green card or to become a citizen. And I hope for a future, and I know Valeria and Blaise will talk about this too, where refugees are able to really meaningfully join in the conversation about the policies that impact them and their families. And I think for me, that's really a big part of how it shows up in our advocacy work. I mean, we're all the time thinking of sort of concrete policies that the administration, in this case, the Biden administration, but there'll be a new administration following the elections in November, and Congress, our representatives in the House, our members of the Senate, what they're doing to sort of show up for these communities. The refugee resettlement program has come a long, long way in the last 4 years. In 2020, we were at a place where we were settling record low numbers of refugees, and there wasn't a clear path to protection. And this year, we might resettle 100,000 refugees, which would be the most in 30 years. That's a huge progress, but there's really so much more we need to do, and so much more we need our members of Congress, our state and local elected leaders who are there to represent us, and the administration, the president, to step up and support our communities and support these pathways to make sure people feel belonging. And that's what our advocacy is really all about.
Yeah. Sorry, Victor. Thank you so much for those reflections, Danilo. I wanted to talk a little bit about my biggest hopes and dreams, especially as I've been honored to do organizing with community leaders here on the ground. I think when I was thinking about this question, the only way I could sum it up is that my biggest hope and dream is that in the future, our communities are able to thrive. I hope that we not only have opportunities to survive, but to thrive, whether that happens through better access to education, through having more of our families to being able to stay together, more opportunities for immigrants and refugees to pursue the careers they know and love. Through all of these different vehicles, I hope that we are able to feel like our communities are not only hoping they can have more, but that they are given the rights and opportunities they deserve to live out whatever they dream. I also think one of my biggest hopes is that our society will become a place where immigrants don't have to prove their value, but that we will be inherently seen and heard because we're human beings, that we are not dwindled down to the names that other people want to call us, or not dwindled down to a pawn for financial gain, but that we immigrants and refugees are able to shape the narrative of what is said about us. And that is one of the most powerful things about community organizing. Our work is about making sure that people realize their own power and realize that when they bind together with others to make changes and to dare to envision a different future, they're able to do so. Change takes time, so it doesn't mean it'll happen quickly, but it does mean that there are wins along the way and that those are always meaningful.
Yeah, for me, when I talk about the hope and my dreams, so as a former refugee, somebody who lived in the refugee camp for 11 years, I always, seeing a lot of people, like when I was in refugee camp, people from the region. I was in Uganda, from region like Somalia, Ethiopia, Sudan, we all in the refugee camp where there is a lot of tremendous talented people, accountant, engineers, doctors, but the whole there, the dream and hope is dying there, being malnutrition in that camp. It's really sad, and that's what brings my hope and dreams and why I love what I do. Every year with this organizing team, we go to see the decision maker and trying to encourage or helping them to pass the bills that will be helping the settlements program that will allow these people that are hopeless, people that live in the refugee camp for longer, they can also come and get opportunity and show their talent, like what they have. Because they cannot go back to where they're from because they've been persecuted because of their religion, like the thing that you just saw in the video, a refugee. And about my story, so what I see, what I can do, what I can represent, this is something that I hope and I dream that the president can raise the number, the people to bring in the country so they can also have an opportunity that we have. That is my dream and hope.
I think like that's where your work comes really important, right? Empowering like community leaders, your own like immigrant and refugee neighbors to find paths towards, solutions to these problems that they face. And they're like experts at these problems because they're the ones facing them, right? We're the ones facing them. Me as a DACA recipient, like I'm also very well aware of the long waiting times that Danilo was talking about, right? That I mean, there is like people in the family, like my own friends, my own family members who have been waiting, 15 plus years to just find a path towards citizenship. So like, how do we like slowly and collectively change those things? And I think that's where your community organizing work is really impactful with collaboration with the policy team. So,
Yes.
which again, kind of connected back to democracy, right? Or like elections, like what does democracy and freedom mean to you? And why would you say that they're so important for you this year?
I don't want to go first every time, but I'll go again this time. And I think it's an important question, Victor. And I think you raised freedom, and I think sometimes when we talk about freedom, we're talking about like two different things. We're talking about freedom from violence or freedom from persecution and oppression, from discrimination. And I also think sometimes we're talking about freedom to, freedom to be who we want to be and to live where we and how we want to live, freedom to advocate for our values, and tying that into democracy, tying that into the elections that are coming up, the need to register today on National Voter Registration Day, and encourage our friends and neighbors to register to vote as well. I mean, really, all of those different kinds of freedoms are on the ballot this year, I think. And not just when it comes to the elections, but also in terms of making our voices heard in general. Something that I think a lot about, living in New York, I'm in DC a lot of the time on Capitol Hill meeting with members of Congress. They don't really want to hear from me. They want to hear from their constituents. They want to hear from voters in their cities, in their states. And every time I raise a policy that Church World Service is supporting in support of refugees and newcomers, these members of Congress are much more willing to listen if they've heard about it from their constituents, if they've heard about it from people who are actually there on the ground in the states that they represent, who are in the districts, and who are talking to them about it too. And so it's, you don't have to be a policy expert to be engaged and to be, supporting and to be raising your voice. And I think that's part of what makes democracy so important. So part of it is about registering to vote and going to vote on election day and voting early, and building a plan to vote as well. Part of it is about just raising your voice with your elected leaders already and making sure they're hearing from you about some of these values that we've been talking about around, belonging, around finding a path to safety, finding stability and permanence, finding the place to thrive as well. So I think democracy and freedom, they're all tied up and they're all really important this year.
Yeah, thank you so much, Danilo. And I think I agree with you. They're definitely tied up, and there are high stakes this year for both of those. To me, democracy is a place where power is truly given to the people. I'm from Colombia, and I think there have been many times throughout our country's history that our people haven't felt like their right to choose is respected or honored, or that it's safe and private to be involved in decision-making processes. In some of our home countries, we may feel like we can't vote without facing repercussions or even persecution. And I think that this is an experience that can be shared across many different cultures and different nations. So I think democracy and freedom first starts when we are able to choose, and when we are able to make these choices without fear. I think specifically in our American society, democracy and freedom is only possible when we as people feel like we have the direct choice can make a direct choice on the decisions that are made that impact us in our day-to-day lives. So whether that's deciding who's in power, whether that's deciding where our money is allocated, and when we are able to hold our institutions and people in power accountable, like Danilo was saying, by meeting with them or voting, all of these things promote freedom, and all of these things are help us make sure that we are working towards safe and thriving communities. I think another important part of freedom is having the freedom to advocate around the issues that different communities are impacted by. Freedom also involves removing barriers that hold people back, and creating space where everyone's voices can be heard and heard truly. So whether that's advocating for more language access, workforce development opportunities, when people are able to truly overcome these barriers, they are able to have freedom. So no matter what their background, when people feel empowered to shape their own futures and are able to contribute to their communities without limitations, I think that's truly when freedom and democracy can happen.
Wow, thank you guys. So for me, I believe that democracy is not just about election. It's also about ensuring that all the institution, laws, and governance structures are transparent and accountable for or be responsive to needs of all the citizens. So like we all say that it's also help people to who are in the power, people who are in the governance direction to be transparent for what is going on, even if for this election that will be held, so we know like who win and who really win and who people voted. So it's to give us as a people a power to take decision maker accountable for everything that they're doing for us. And also, like we said, freedom. Freedom is the liberty to express yourself, your thoughts, without being judged, without being, being judged, like especially things that are going on about immigrants in the country. Sometimes when you're trying to say it, they say like, oh, he eats dogs. So it just, that is not freedom. But I think like freedom is the liberty to feel like you're free. You are also belong here. You are, and also freedom is to ensure that the democracy function in fair and in matters. So that's the thing that I can say about that.
There's a lot at stake, and again, like that's why it's important to register to vote. And if you actually want to learn more about how you can build paths of opportunity and belonging for immigrants and refugees, check out the link in the comments. There is a link that will walk you towards your path, whether no matter where you are in your place of belonging and whatnot, like you're able to find all kinds of resources on the site, research your ballot, research the candidates that you may be voting for. But before you get there, you have to register to vote. So check out the site to do that, because these guys talked about a lot of stuff, right? Like freedom of persecution, freedom of fear, of belonging. And there's a lot at stake in every election, no matter the year. There's a lot of decisions that you're able to influence by just casting your ballot. When you're a registered voter and an eligible voter, you're able to do that. So, and this word kind of came up a lot, and it's kind of come up a lot throughout this series, but belonging. So we've talked about that. So what does belonging mean to you, and how can we take action? How can the reviewers take action to create paths of belonging and opportunity wherever they may be at, they may be watching us from?
Yeah, thank you so much, Victor. Go ahead and start off, Danilo. And thank you for posing this question, Victor. And I feel like it's something really important for each of us to reflect on. What does belonging mean to each one of us? To me, belonging is being able to have the safety and confidence to be yourself in any space. I think we have all probably felt that sensation of walking into a room where you don't feel welcomed or thinking, wow, I don't belong here. So I think belonging happens when people from different cultures, different backgrounds are able to know that they are not only accepted for their differences, but that they are not seen as taking away from the new communities that they are integrating into. When they're able to feel truly welcomed and appreciated for who they authentically are. There are also so many barriers that can prevent people from experiencing true belonging, of course. We can think of language barriers, discrimination, racism, lack of workforce opportunities, being in a legal limbo, not feeling like you have a permanent way to stay in the place you call home. All of these systemic barriers can affect how someone experiences belonging in a community, right? So I think identifying those barriers is the first step to know how to begin building bridges wherever you may be in your community and creating paths for belonging and opportunity. I also think that that's the first step, knowing what those issues are. And after this, there's of course so many action steps that you can take with your community to start building those bridges towards belonging and opportunity. I think you can join a board or committee in your local community. There are so many boards or committees, and odds are is that there's one that focuses on the issues you care about, whether that's education, youth issues, immigrant affairs. So that's a good resource, always looking into your local community and seeing what board or committees are available. I think one of the most important things is having meaningful conversations with those around you on why these issues matter to you. What are the issues that prevent others from, or yourself from, feeling like they belong? And having those conversations and talking about them and explaining to others why they matter and why they should matter to everyone is really important. I think you can do things like organize a listening session. If you really care about lack of funding for local schools, there are probably other people in your community who care about that same issue or who are being affected by that issue. So I think organizing just community meetings where you can get together with people who are also experiencing something similar to you and seeing how you can act is very powerful. And lastly, the biggest theme for today, and it being National Voter Registration Day, for those that are eligible voting. I know sometimes voting can be overwhelming, but it does matter. It's an act that won't immediately solve all of our problems, of course, but when we vote to keep the vision of change alive, that act in itself is powerful, even if the outcome isn't what we may want. We have the opportunity to be directly involved in the decisions that are made in our nation, in our local and state communities. So I think taking advantage of that is very important and is a great way to act.
Yeah. So thank you, Valeria. Wow, those are good words. What I would say about belonging, it's feel accepted. Feel like you are fitting in the family, feel like you're feeling in the family without being judged from your accents or just a little behavior that is, because we grow up in a different culture. So acceptance, it is something that it really helps somebody to even if show their talents and have the opportunity to also show the world, what they can do. So, and what we see is like sometimes we get judged because of the accent. We get, bullied because of where you're from. But the way to belonging is also accepting, that my neighbor might be from different places. Maybe he doesn't know how to cut grass. If you can just stand up and accept it and show him how to do it right way, in the American way, I think that is the path to a belonging. That's what teaching the community, teaching other Americans and advocate for. And so I'm not going to say a lot, but that is the thing that I will say to the path of belonging, also accept it and understand.
Yeah, thanks, Blaise and Valeria. I think, you really covered a lot of ground on what belonging means. I mean, I think some of the same things about feeling accepted, about being safe. I mean, sometimes the very first thing is just being safe, but then there's a lot more to it. Feeling like you have stability and that you have opportunity. Those are really important things too. And I think a lot about when I think about belonging, sort of how do we create belonging in our communities and in our country? And, what are the sort of small ways that we can contribute to like a culture of belonging and acceptance? And I think sometimes it can be really hard, especially when we're talking about voting. Like, people sort of think, well, I just have one voice, and there's so many voices, and we hear them all the time that seem to be pushing back against that culture of acceptance and belonging. But I think there are a lot of really small ways. What I've learned is when you engage just a little bit, sometimes it can become a snowball where you're talking with other people and they're talking with other people, and all of a sudden you're part of a movement, and people are starting to take notice of that movement. So, even something as simple as learning about the issues, folks who are sort of, watching this space and thinking about ways to register to vote, but getting educated about what your local elected leaders might be saying about belonging. In your local towns, are there spaces where people are thinking about these things, about creating more acceptance and belonging in the sort of local areas where you live? And I think those really small things can really build. And so it's important for us, I think that's part of what we do as an advocacy team for Church World Service, is provide people with the tools to take those little steps that can become really, really big, and that impact can really be heard. And I know that there's a link being shared on sort of some of the various ways you can take action. There's a toolkit we have on civic engagement. Yeah, part of it is making sure you have a plan to vote. Part of it is thinking about, is there a town hall in my area where a local elected leader might be coming to speak about these issues? What are they saying about belonging? What are they saying about welcoming newcomers? I think some of those things are really important to be aware of and start engaging in, and we can all sort of make a difference together that way.
I love everything that you all have said. I think that how we get to really build change is through those little acts, right? Like the conversations that you have, the agitations that you have, the sometimes a letter that you send to your elected officials. It's the vote. It's sometimes the art that you make. It's all of those little acts that eventually contribute to significant changes in our communities. And I think that you all summarized that, and also the fact that that difference between a welcoming place and then a place where you actually belong, right? So no matter where you may where we come from, we all want a place to belong, to feel, to thrive, right? Like you folks mentioned that throughout this whole time, right? Like there's so many contributions that immigrants make beyond the economics, and yet native or not, we all deserve to belong, right? So thank you so much for the conversation today, y'all. Again, for those who are watching, if you would like to get involved with some of our efforts, take the Pathmaker Pledge, whether you are in Texas and Georgia and North Carolina, Ohio, no matter where you're from, sign the Pathmaker Pledge. Let us know if you're voting and what's actually exciting for you to vote or to encourage your family members to go out and vote. And if you are located in one of the states where we have organizers in, which is Ohio, North Carolina, and a few more, you may even get emails from these amazing people reminding you on when to vote and how you can do your research on what's on your ballot. Yeah, thank you so much for your time today, y'all. And till next time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.